Holy crap.
People persist in doubting the evidence.
Don't run and hide. Don't be afraid. Don't turn away any longer. The truth will set you free. You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
We're turning all of our antennas towards Jimmy Church on Dark Matter Radio.
And now, your host, the captain of conspiracy, the prince of paranormal. This ain't your daddy's radio network show. This is Jimmy Church Fade to Black.
Hey now. Hey. It's the 4th of July. And this is Fade to Black. How you doing, everybody? I hope everybody is safe. Hope everybody's having a great time. And maybe if we're lucky tonight, I mean, this place is soundproof to degrees that you know nothing about. But just maybe we'll hear something go crack. Bleed into the mics. That'd be cool. Some firework action. That would be. How do you say it? Is it Happy 4th of July? Merry Independence Day? What do you... I don't even know. Well, it's July 4th anyway. And again, I hope everybody is safe. And if you're listening right now, that means you're at home doing the right thing, avoiding the streets, the mandatory sobriety checks, all that internet rumor out there. All right, let's go. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Friday, July 4th, 173 days into the new year. Live from the JP Motorsports Studios right here in Burbank, California for KJCR and the Dark Matter Radio Network. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is the 4th of July. We're having fun here in Burbank, but I can only imagine what's going down right now in Roswell. Big salute, seriously, today, for all the proud men and women in uniform, men and women in uniform. For without them, we don't have a 4th of July. They make sure. They put it online every day so we can have it. And you think about it, the sacrifices that they have made, they gave up their tomorrow so you could have it today. Always think about that. True heroes. All right. So I went and searched, went and looked for the appropriate July 4th birthday. This is the best I could come up with. I feel like I'm drinking already. Singer John Waite is 62 years old. You remember John, frontman for Bad English, The Babies, who totally rocked, by the way. That Babies anthology, that album, The Greatest Hits. Oh, man. Can't touch that. And Missing You. Remember that one? All right. John Waite, 62 years old, born on July 4th. And that man parties every birthday. You know it. And, you know, I was compelled. I was talked into doing this for a couple of days. I'm just going to do it because this guy's from Indy. He's a Hoosier. Shout out to first-time listener Mark Anderson. Yes, there are aliens having a galactic kegger in outer space right now, and it's probably in Beech Grove, Indianapolis. Maybe, well, anyway, moving on. There you go, Mark. Follow us on Twitter. Yeah. at J Church Radio, Facebook, YouTube. Everything is Fade to Black, J Church Radio, Jimmy Church Radio. You know what to do. Go follow, like, and subscribe on Twitter. Oh, man, what a catastrophe that was last night. Somebody took it upon themselves to crank out 1,000 Twitter followers to us. I don't know how they pulled that off. Turns out you don't need a password to do anything like that. Thought there was. But anyway, so today the producers here spent the better part of probably 3 hours cleaning up Twitter and deleting suspect followers. Oh, man. Absolutely nuts. And it just turns out that can happen at any time. Yep. So anyway, please, whoever did it, I appreciate it, but no more. I understand the intent. All right. Don't forget to hashtag DMRadioNet. Here at Fade to Black, we use TweetDeck. Thanks to Jack Dorsey. Jack, how you doing? At Jack. All right, TweetDeck is what we use. Hashtag DMRadioNet. I've got my columns in front of me. I've got the personal column. Then I've got the Fade or Not column. And it's kind of strange to watch them both beep, 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 move down. TweetDeck is amazing. If you don't, just go and get it. Just go and get TweetDeck right now. It is cool. Hashtag DMRadioNet. Tonight we're going to have open lines. It's a very, very special show tonight. Adam Gorightly is our guest. And about, I'm going to say 6 months ago, the producers here brought him to me and said, "Man, we've got to get this guy on the show." And what I ended up doing over the last 6 months is become an Adam Gorightly fan. Spent a bunch of time over at his website, reading his rants. I might have stolen church rant from Adam Gorightly. No, I think we did it first. I don't know. But nonetheless, he's got a rant column. Go over there and check it out. And we're going to be discussing some of my favorite rants tonight with Adam. It's going to be cool. But I became an Adam Gorightly fan. And I thought at first, because I remember hearing him a long time ago on Coast to Coast, and I just thought, Adam just might be, even for me, he just might be too much. But no. Adam has got his head screwed on straight. I'm telling you what. And so for everybody out there tonight, just buckle up, get ready, and we will have Adam on in the bottom of the hour. Okay, I got to get a couple of things out of the way really quick before we get to the first break. Don't forget to go and register for the contest. You know where to do it. Go over to jimmychurchradio.com, contact in the desert. Scroll down, please. Scroll down and click and go and get yourself some. That's what you need to do. Had a couple of emails this week. Didn't get any for the last month during the contest, but this week, people wanting to enter the contest without giving up information. I knew nothing about that. I haven't registered for the contest. I got my own path. I'm going. So we're looking into that. I'm going to see if I can get. I don't know. We're looking into that, and hopefully I'll have an answer on Monday about that. Our current winners, 3, Darcy Lund, Thomas Peak, Sandra Rios. You guys, congratulations. You will come out and join us. We will be broadcasting live that night, February 8th. All right, now check this out. I want to get this stuff out of the way. Number 1, on Facebook, Peter Tonks. Peter Tonks posted this today, and he said, and I'm quoting here, I attended a flying saucer convention Long John Nebel hosted in New York City in 1967. There was a female speaker who claimed to be from Venus. However, given her thick Brooklyn accent, I suspect her mode of transit was actually the J train from Coney Island. Well done. Well done, Peter. Well played. Well played. Yeah, I've been going through the whole contactee brotherhood, Adamski, Van Tassel thing, and it is what a great time it must have been to be an American hanging out here with what was going on out of the Mojave and the Yucca Valley, 29 Palms. Man. All right. Then I got sent this today. And it just seemed, and I don't know why this trend is here, because I got sent this today. And then immediately after that, I was on the site today. And the site, you know what? I don't want to go there yet. Well, the site is called the National Report. All right. Now, anything, the entire website. Oh, you know what? I'll get to that in a second. But the site is called National Report. Somebody sent me this link today, and I don't want to embarrass that individual, but he knows. And he actually said, well, I'll tell you what he said in a second. This is what the headline said. Study finds 1 in 3 Americans have been implanted with RFID chips, most unaware. That comes from the National Report. The article goes on to say, scientists at the Wyoming Institute of Technology, otherwise known as WIT, have determined that a shocking 1 in 3 Americans have been implanted with an RFID microchip. In an article published this week, they detail a study of nearly 3,000 individuals in which they identified nearly 1,000 individuals that had been implanted with an RFID chip. Most were unaware that they have been implanted with such a chip. This finding comes amongst increasing predictions that RFID chip implementation will become commonplace in the next decade. Lead scientist on the study, John Bruegel, PhD, offered the following, and I quote here, analysis. And I was like, wait. Stop right there. Who is John Bruegel, PhD, from WIT? I've never heard of the Wyoming Institute of Technology. What is going on here? So I go doing a little investigation, and this is what I got for you. This bogus news story comes to us by the way of the National Report, a satirical website that specializes in spoofing hot-button social and political issues. For example, the implementation of RFID microchips. There are currently more than a dozen articles referencing microchip implants on the site. All are complete fabrications. A story published in 2013 claimed that the mandatory chip implants were underway in the small town of Hanna, Wyoming, allegedly per a little-known provision of Obamacare. And I do remember that. The article raised such a ruckus that the town clerk spent several days fielding phone calls from citizens all over the United States. The guy that runs the website, and hold on for a second. Hold on. Oh, yeah, here it is. His name is Alan Montgomery. I wanted to get that right. He has publicly stated that none of their content should be construed as real news. And I'm quoting here from Alan. He says, "It is our opinion that if a person is too lazy to check for multiple references or at least one other source, and they spread information around as fact, well, they can only be blamed for their own stupidity, not us." End quote. That's the end of the story. Yeah, gotta watch, and quoting a PhD from WIT, and that's when I immediately went and just thought, oh, I'm getting to the bottom of this right now. The National Report. And so right after that, I got like 2 or 3 National Report stories. Nobody knew I was investigating this. I popped up in my email today. Jimmy, you got to check this out. It's crazy what they're doing. Man, if it says National Report, stop. Just stop right there. All right. Okay, so there's my happy 4th of July. Is that what it is? Is it happy? Is it happy? Yeah, like the Onion. Well, the Onion we know is goofball. I'm with you there, Space Boy. The Onion is great, actually. Good video, too. Tonight, special 4th of July show with Adam Gorightly. It's going to be cool. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. Adam is out of his mind and smarts. The opposite of me. I'm of sound mind and not all there. This is Fade to Black, the Friday edition. Bell Gab. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Shoot me an email to Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us. Do not touch that mouse.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444, or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Welcome back. Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Shoot us an email right now to Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. You can follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Don't forget to hashtag DMRadioNet. Go hang out with all the Fadernauts and enjoy the conversation that goes on over there. And if you hang out long enough, they'll give you the secret room, the dark room where all those guys hang out and gals. All right. Well, let's get the show cracking. And I see the Fade to Black hotline is going off, and I'm looking at the caller ID. And I'm just going to say it right now to everybody. Hello, happy 4th of July to Richard Dolan. Richard, how are you, sir?
Hi, Jimmy. Happy 4th of July to you as well, my friend.
And are the fireworks over? You're way, way, way East Coast.
They're just starting. I'm over here in Rochester, New York. It's nice and dark, a little after 10 o'clock, and people are starting to get a little crazy.
But you're at home playing it safe, behaving.
I guess that's about right.
You know, it's kind of funny when we were all kids and it was the 4th of July, you were going to go out, watch fireworks, 10 kids in the car without seat belts. Dad had a beer between his legs. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's a whole nother world out there now, man.
I think the 4th of July brings out the 12-year-old in most of us.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And happy 4th to you, man. Happy 4th.
And to you, absolutely.
So we've been talking this week, and I know that you just got back from the Secret Space Conference out there in California, in San Mateo.
That's right.
And you had a chance, and you had discussed the Malibu base on your own radio show. Thank you for that, by the way.
But my question is to you that I've been throwing at all of my, serious researchers and investigators, my friends out there. What were, when you first laid eyes on those first images, as they started to hit the press, what went through your mind?
Well, honestly, when I first saw that image, it absolutely looked like an artificial structure under the water. I mean, I don't know what else I could say about it. It looked, I don't have it in front of me, but I remember it very well. It was extremely flat. That's the one thing. And it seemed like it had very well-defined sides to it. And you could see that there's what seems to be kind of like a cave inside it, some kind of opening that goes, underneath that roof. So, sure, when you're looking at it from all the different angles, and we're in an era now where we're able to get multiple angles of this just via Google Earth, I mean, of all things. It certainly looks artificial. And that, of course, is not the word from the so-called experts who've looked at it and they said, no, it's a geological formation. But I don't know how to argue with these people, but it certainly looks artificial. I could see why anyone would think that.
Yeah, and trying to get somebody in an official capacity, that works for the government to say anything but, the status quo, well, that's fine. And, anybody that's any more versed in that, it's you. And you know how that government spokesman thing kind of goes. I want to say this really quick. We got a couple of images today. I will send these to you via email immediately after the show. I want you to take a look at these. These come from WR250. He's one of the great forum posters over at Belgab. And he went on the NOAA, the National Geophysical Data Center's website, and he pulled up some new depth information. Now, one of the concerns from John Anthony West about the age of this is that if it is indeed under 1,500, 1,400 feet of water to the top of this structure,
right,
during the last ice age, it was still submerged. So it probably wasn't built or was that old unless it was constructed under the water. Therefore, he felt like it's got to be natural. And that's a great position to take, and I understand that. Well, I got these new images today from WR250, and it's another analysis, and it shows the top of this structure only 150 feet under the water. So we've got two different topographical.
Wait, the official word is that it's more than 1,000 feet under the water?
That was our original measurements from the USGS.
It strikes me as not realistic, and here's why I think that. Because to be able to get a photograph from above the surface, I don't see how we would have the ability to get a resolution on Google Earth that's much below 100 feet.
Right, unless it was sonar assisted, and they did a combination of the data.
Light does not penetrate.
Right. No, it does not. After 200 feet, you're in blackness. If you've ever scuba dived, you know what I mean? Right. But so this topographical analysis shows it only 150 feet below the surface, which would put it 300 feet to 200 to 300 feet above the surface of the ocean during the last ice age. And now we've got a whole nother... And I'm sure John Anthony West and Robert Schoch and all those other guys would have a whole nother outlook.
Well, yeah, they're just going on the data that was available to them. A couple of things about that area. Catalina Island has been, that's only about, I think, 50 miles southeast of the spot that you're talking about. I'm trying to get my...
Southwest.
Southwest, really? Okay.
Yeah, be a little. Actually, it's probably directly south because of the. But anyway, yeah,
but
right
it's not
there.
Far. It's within, I think, about 50 miles, if I remember correctly. And the thing is, Catalina Island has been a long-standing hotspot of many, many sightings, reliable sightings. Let me add, of UFO, unknown, unidentifiable objects in that area. Occasionally, people have claimed to have seen objects coming out of the water from Catalina Island, going into the water. And on top of that, one of the books that I published by Dr. Richard Sauter, who's one of the leading experts in the world on secret underground bases, secret underground tunnel systems. He did a book a few years ago called Hidden in Plain Sight, which I published for him. And he has a lot to say on Catalina Island. Back in the 1960s, the United States Navy was drawing up plans to construct an underwater, under the ocean floor base at or near Catalina Island. Now, officially speaking, no one knows if they built it, but we know for sure that they contracted a Navy artist, an illustrator named Walter Kirshner, to draw illustrations of a hypothetical undersea base in a number of places, but including Catalina Island. This is back in the late 1960s. Yeah, and, the Navy's attitude, as far as we can tell, was that money was not really a problem. Technology was not really a problem, and people think, well, how could that not be a problem? But look, even by the late 60s, deep tunneling capabilities were very sophisticated, and by tunneling, we're talking under the ocean floor. We have, for example, the Channel Tunnel from England to France. That's 25 miles under the ocean floor. Japan has an equally long series of under-ocean floor tunnels. New York City's got the Holland Tunnel, the Lincoln Tunnel. We know how to go under the ocean floor, under the riverbeds, and under the oceans.
Right.
Then in terms of getting a permanent source of oxygen, that might be, you might think, how could you do that? But that's also not a problem. There's oxygen in the water, and we've had the technology for over 50 years to split the oxygen out of the water. That's why nuclear submarines can stay submerged for months at a time. It's not because of oxygen tanks. They're taking the oxygen out of the water. So all of this technology is actually there. It's all there. And the motivation for having a deep underground and under ocean base, that's plain as day. I mean, if you want a secret base, under the ground is the best place to go. So there are reasons to be very wary, or at least, I should say, very attentive to the possibility of an under-ocean floor base in the vicinity of Catalina Island. And now what you're seeing, this other location, is only 50 miles away. And even if that's a natural formation, people should keep in mind, a lot of underground facilities are developed from pre-existing, whether they're salt mines or natural caves. A lot of times, engineers will work with what Mother Nature has already provided for them.
Absolutely.
So this could be, in part or in large part, an artificial, a natural structure or natural creation. That doesn't mean that the military might not find it useful for their own purposes. So, just a thought.
That's why, Richard, I turn to you. You are the voice of reason. You make it all sound so easy and so good. I got to thank you for taking the time from your family on this 4th of July. Go hang out. Go have fun. Richard, go do everything I would do. Just bring it down a notch.
That gives me a lot of leeway, I think.
And I will talk to you soon. We'll see you out at Contact in the Desert. Looking forward to that.
That's right. And a little more than a month from now.
Yeah, a little more from and we'll have you on. We'll have you on next month, and we'll spend some time together. All right?
Yeah, actually, right now I'm in the middle of doing a total website overhaul. I haven't really told this to anyone, but it's going to be a beautiful site. I'm so excited about it. I spent the last couple of days working on it, thinking I need an overhaul to my website. So if anyone goes to Richard Dolan Press in the next couple of days, not yet, maybe within 3-4 days, they'll see a completely brand new, beautiful site.
Well, the website was always great. So you've taken it up another notch. Does it still look the same? What have you done?
Oh, well, it's going to be it'll have all the same content, but new content, a lot of new content.
Okay.
But just something that'll be easier for me to update and manage. I haven't really updated my old site in a little while.
Well, then you can do mine next.
All right.
We'll
hook up on that.
I'll talk to you. Have a great weekend. Be safe.
You.
I'll talk
Take
to you.
Care. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Richard Dolan in the house. Thank you, Richard. July 4th. Had to bring him in. He wanted to talk about and give us his 2 cents on the Malibu deep underwater base. And that is, man, I don't know what to say. Thank you, Richard. That's cool. When the bat line goes off like that and you see that on caller ID, you know what you do? You pick it up every time. Thank you, Richard. And, okay, don't forget, tonight it is our 4th of July special with Adam Gorightly. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. All right, Fader Knots, are you guys ready? I brought you a little Richard Dolan tonight. Now it's going to be some Adam Gorightly. I'll be back right after this at JChurch Radio, hashtag DMRadioNet, Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Back right after this.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal God on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? My name's Brian Taylor, Ninja Badass Extraordinaire, and this is JimmyChurchRadio.com. JJCR, in your face.
JimmyChurchRadio.com on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
All right, everybody, coast to coast, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, near and far, hither and thither, east-west, celebrating right now around the country. This is Fade to Black. Happy, safe 4th of July. All right, Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. That's what you do at JChurchRadio. And Lou, I see what you're tweeting right now, and I will check that out in just a second, if you don't mind. I will get to that. Okay, you know what? I just want to jump straight into this. Adam Gorightly, like I said in the intro of the show, was somebody that we wanted to get on here at Fade to Black probably about 6 months ago. And what I ended up doing over the last 6 months is I have become an Adam Gorightly fanatic. And if you know what fan or fanatic means, well, and you know that definition, that's what happened to me. A brilliant writer. He's got a lot of books out. We're going to talk about all of that tonight. But he's best known for his book about the Manson family, The Shadow Over Santa's, I almost said Shasta, Santa Susanna, Black Magic, Mind Control, and the Manson Family Mythos. He has appeared on Coast to Coast. He's been on with Ian Punnett back in the day, which I did catch. He's been on with our friend Clyde Lewis on Ground Zero, television appearances like the History Channel's documentary, The Manson Murders. But he writes about everything that I talk about nearly every single night on this show. So I wanted to hold him off for something like tonight. And so I would like to welcome right now to the program Adam Gorightly. And we are talking to Adam. He's here in California, but way north of us. If you would have been a little more south, you could have come into the studio with us, Adam. How you doing, sir?
Great. Hey, maybe we can do that sometime. I get down to SoCal now and again. But, hey, thanks for the great intro.
Oh, no. Thank you. And it's 4th of July. And when we reached out to you, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but when we did, I was like, oh, man, we've got to do it on the 4th of July. And I was just hoping that, you guys were going to be able to, I don't know what you're doing with the family up there. It is, 4th of July. Usually, most of the, the baking and cooking is tomorrow anyway. So I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't interrupting family plans, and you can come hang out with us tonight. And so thank you for that. Seriously, thanks.
Great. Yeah, great to be here with you.
Keith, what's funny is Keith had said to me, I believe it was right after you and I had talked about coming on the show, and Keith goes, "Hey man, in 10 days on 4th of July, you want to do just a repeat, right?" He was throwing that hint out there, like let's. You want to do that, right? You want to take the night off, right? And I was like, no, dude, I just booked Adam Gorightly. We're a go. The 4th of July. It was hilarious, man. It was great. And so thank you for messing up Keith's weekend, too. And it was great. And I really appreciate that. Now,
yeah, I'm happy to mess up everybody's week.
Yeah, totally. And we have everybody's hanging out tonight. I do see that everybody is here. And with you, and I'm being serious when I say that just about everything that I talk about every single day on the show, you've either got a book about it, you've got a column about it, you've got a rant about it, you've got a website. You know what I mean? It's all there. And so with that type of intro and setting the stage for this, let's just back up for a second. And I have to ask you, what happened as a child? Something went way wrong in Adam Gorightly's life.
Like I bumped my head or
an abduction, I mean.
Well, perhaps that might have happened somewhere along the line. As a child, I seemed to be, and a lot of kids are, in those early years, you're open to things, as you grow older and you age and consensus realities push down your throat. Things are a certain way, and don't talk to that imaginary friend of yours and all those type of stuff.
Right.
So, like a lot of kids, I was open to things and had experiences. Nothing too profound. I remember a few things though. One time, I must have been 5 or so. I had a dachshund. His name was Herman. Great dog. Actually got him from a litter down the street. I grew up in Fresno, California. They had these litter of dachshunds, and all of them got named German names. His brother Heinrich lived down the street. It was kind of funny. But anyway, there was this one episode where I was just staring into Herman's eye, and it was like the movie The Fantastic Voyage. I went into his eye and into inner space, So even back then, it was there's an element of the research I'm interested in, experiences I've had that deal with these type of trance states that people can enter into and become more aware of the other, whether it's psychic happenings or different paranormal events. So that was one episode, but things really got weird in my late teens. And I've talked about this quite a bit over the years, but back in those days I experimented with psychedelics a little bit. I'm certainly not endorsing the willy-nilly use of drugs, but
right.
back in the late 70s, a friend and I, a colleague, a guy who's a good friend of mine still, and we got a simpatico between us. We took LSD, and this was during the period where, I had a yearning. This was during the era of close encounters of the third kind, and a lot of my friends had that yearning to go out into outer space to be taken away by aliens. And so in the night in question, we dropped the acid, and we were at a party, and it got a little bit intense there. So my friend and I said, let's get the heck out of there. And we started, this is in Fresno, California, of all places. And we just started walking down the street, walking towards there's a ditch bank we could get away. And before we made it to the ditch bank, I jokingly said, what if we saw a UFO now? Nobody would believe us. And we both started laughing at that kind of uncontrollably. And it wasn't but 5 or 10 minutes after getting onto the ditch bank that we saw our first UFO. And I've shared this story quite a bit over the years, but what I stress is that we were both seeing the same thing. If it was a hallucination, it was a dual hallucination, because we were describing these objects as we saw them. We saw a number of them, more than 6 to 8. Neither of us remember the exact number we saw that night. And as we witnessed these things, the first one was a classical shaped UFO, and we saw a cigar shape. Then they started getting progressively weirder until they were less like cartoonish thing with multicolor propellers. It was a very strange experience. So, backing up, you asked what happened in my youth. This is one of the experiences that set me on this path of being interested in these type of topics.
Well, when you go back and you reflect on that, I would assume, and I can't really speak from a whole lot of experience here, but from what limited experience, I mean, if you are truly hallucinating, would you remember the hallucinations? Probably not, but if it was a real event, you would remember the real event no matter what your state of mind is. I'm guessing here. So looking back at it on that event now, was, what I mean? Was it real?
That wasn't my first time dabbling with psychedelics, so
right.
These were different than anything myself or my friend, who I'm still good friends with,
right,
ever saw. And that stuck with us. And at first, I was convinced. Yeah, man, we saw ETs, and my friend was like, I don't know, man, I don't know what the heck it was. And as I got more and more into this stuff, reading more books, I started entertaining other theories, and there was kind of the trickster element to this experience.
Sure.
I remember I read books, went through the whole spectrum, and finally the theory that made the most sense to me was the stuff John Keel and Jacques Vallée kind of touched on it. And in fact, I think it's in Operation Trojan Horse or one of Keel's books, where he talks about the psychedelic experience and how it can be akin to what psychic channelers do, or people who are sensitive, and it can basically allow you to see, how people are using different ultraviolet things now and infrared imagery to see things, and perhaps that's what trance states in the psychedelic experience allow you, like tuning in a radio to allow you to see in through, what some people call UFO windows. So I think that is partly what might have happened that night. Another key aspect is that, prior to the experience, I joked and said, what if we saw a UFO right now?
Right,
Nobody would believe us. And I think unwittingly, and I've written pretty extensively, that I unwittingly and with my friend were actually performing a sort of magical ritual. And I think the experience with UFOs, whatever they are, is closely related to perception and human conscious, and there's an interplay there. And it seemed like at that night with those whatever we were seeing, whatever those entities were, that we were part of the process of creating that. That doesn't mean that we were imagining all that per se. Sometimes I think the experience is there's a certain energy out there that we reveal itself to us sometimes, and of course human perception uses its own models to frame it into perhaps a classic UFO, or maybe a burning bush, or the will of Ezekiel. So anyway, a lot of thoughts there, but
one of
my experience, and it's really stuck with me all these years.
Well, you write about a couple of different things when it comes to UFOs, UFO specific topics. That some of it could be real, some of it could be interdimensional, some of it could be from time travel element. You have the extraterrestrial, the whole ET hypothesis. So, and some of it may be drug induced too, as well. And so it's interesting how you do the writing and how you actually reference all of them, because all of them are possible. And I totally agree with you. But as you write like that, what is your gut feeling? Do you think ET is just that? Do you think that these sightings are, otherworldly, or do you think possibly that they are man-made? You write about that too as well, and all of it is good. But by the way, when you read your stuff, you get to the end of one of your rants, and you're like, well, you know what? Yeah, okay, I get it. It could be that, and so it makes me even wonder. Well, if you understand what I'm saying, I don't know. Even with my own experiences, I can't. Certainly, I can't apply drugs to the situation because there weren't anything. But you offer so many different views. So I'm going to throw that back to you. What do you think most people are saying?
Well, I'm not 100% convinced or believe in any one theory. I lean towards the interdimensional thing. If you look at the history of ufology, and I heard you talking about the contactees earlier in the show. I'm really into the early days of the contactees, and actually working on a project right now related to that. But if you go back and look at their stories, obviously, there was a certain amount of hoaxing going on with some of those fellows and ladies, but the common thread I see, and you can look at all of them, from Adamski to George Van Tassel to some of the lesser knowns, it all was related to going into trance states. All of them did that. Even it's come out that Adamski used trance states. Of course, Van Tassel did before seeing the UFOs, and really most of those early, Orfilio Angelucci, on, their experiences were more related to some type of psychic event than they were nut and bolt craft coming from, back in those days, it was Venus, or nowadays Zeta Reticuli. But so I think the trance state is closely related to this, and a lot of the messages we were getting from the Space Brothers back in those days were channeled messages. There's just reams and reams of that material. Were they imagining this stuff? Well, in some cases they might have been a little kooky, or it was a put on, but there's so much of that material that it must be coming from some source, whether it's the collective consciousness or our subconscious.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. So that's part of the deal, but I don't discount that we've been visited by ETs. I haven't seen a lot of evidence, though. The things get mixed up. You had the people having encounters with, even nowadays, with they come, the alien grays or whatever the latest version is. But in many cases, there's not a craft involved with that. It's assumed that they came in a spacecraft. Most spacecraft, strange sightings that are filmed or photographed, are usually the triangle-shaped things that most people suspect are really, black ops or suppressed technology that's the government or whoever is out there doing test flights with.
Well, you pointed out one thing. I don't want to get off on this tangent yet too deeply, because I want to talk about this at length later. But you pointed out one thing that, and I knew about it, but I had never seen the drawing, and that was LAM. Okay, now for everybody listening, just write that down, LAM, and it has to do. Well, I guess the foundations are with Aleister Crowley, certainly, but he was probably influenced by a couple of other different writers from that time. Again, we'll talk about this in a minute. But what was significant for LAM, because I had never seen a picture, I had heard that there were drawings out there, and then finally, a few months ago, I see them on your website. I was like, oh, that's what everybody's talking about, right? Now, so LAM was this entity that Aleister Crowley used to talk to. and would channel, or he brought him up from the netherworld, or whatever that, however he did it. But he looked amazingly like the modern day Gray. And you pointed out, and you're absolutely 100% correct, it's the dude from Whitley Strieber's Communion cover. I need your comment on that. I mean, I was blown away when I saw that. Now, that picture of Lamb that I'm talking about, I should have posted it on our site.
Yeah.
Did Alistair draw that, or one of his minions?
Yeah, what Alistair, your Uncle Al, used to do is, he was performing all these different, once again, we get into magic rituals, and summoning forth these entities. And so he kept diaries, and he would do portraits, and that's Crowley's portrait of Lamb, or Lam, I think it's pronounced. There's an interesting story behind all of that. I don't know how much time we got before a break, but I can get into that if you'd like.
Sure, yeah, no, go. I actually grabbed the picture. I'm going to have my producers post it really quick, so go ahead.
So there was a Elizabethan magician back in the day, whenever that was, 1600s, 1700s. I'm not sure when I'd have to go back and look at when the Elizabethan period was, but he was Dr. John Dee, and he was also a spy and a number of other things. Guy he was an alchemist, doing all that type of stuff, and he came up with what was called a system called Enochian magic. It was kind of based on the books of Enoch, which I guess are these books that were removed from the Bible, and it talks about these interactions between the fair maidens of earth and these angels who came down and impregnated them, who people point at, that's the Nephilim. So that's kind of what's going on with the Book of Enoch. And so these magic rituals were cooked up first with John Dee, then Crowley later picked up on this stuff, and he used some of those Enochian rituals, however you pronounce that. And out of this came Lam and another entity called Aiwass. And Aiwass dictated to Crowley thing called the Book of the Law, which was basically Crowley's Bible for his religion, Thelema. In recent years, there's a guy named Alan Greenfield who wrote a book about partly about that, called Secret Ciphers of the UFO-Nauts, and he believed that the Book of the Law actually has code in there that will allow people to summon forth these entities called Lam, like Lam and these other critters. And actually, there's been groups involved in, groups dedicated to summoning forth Lam over the years. And so there's that subculture of all that going on. Now, in the late 40s, there was this fellow named Jack Parsons. You familiar with that name?
Yeah, no, and again, we're getting ahead because the connection between Crowley, the events of 1947, ufology, the beginning of ufology, how this bleeds into NASA, and eventually touches into the JFK assassination. You can kind of connect all the dots on that. But what Parsons did with Crowley, and Parsons, for everybody, he's Parsons Engineering. He was a rocket scientist, but he was also one of the founders of NASA. So, but his connection going back to Tacoma, Washington, and the beginning of ufology and the word flying saucer, all of this was going on at the same time. And so let's not go there quite yet, but okay. Yes. But okay, continue with Jack Parsons though.
So yeah, you touched on his background. He lived in Southern California, the Pasadena area, and was one of the founders of Jet Propulsion Laboratories, which are a big deal now.
Oh, I said NASA. I meant to say JPL. Yeah, my bad.
Well,
my bad.
Of course, yeah, that evolved into all of that. And Parsons was really the inventor, with a couple other people, of this solid rocket solid fuel technology that created the rockets that they later used in the moon expeditions. And so he was involved in that, and they actually named a crater on the moon after Jack Parsons, but he's been kind of removed from the records over the years because he was such a controversial character in his personal life, and for other reasons there was some allegations there or suspicions that he was feeding information to the Israelis at one point back in those days in the late 40s, and some other things that basically got him removed from his job there at Caltech. But he was also a ritual magician, and he was a student of Aleister Crowley. Crowley at that time was over in England. He was quite an old, getting up in the years by then, but he communicated and he blessed Parsons to start a lodge over in the U.S., a OTO lodge called the Agape Lodge, and it was based out of Pasadena, and he got into the same stuff that Crowley was into, performing these magical rituals, and he teamed up with the future founder of Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard, was involved with him for a while, and also this lady by the name of Marjorie Cameron. The headquarters for Parsons' OTO Lodge was there in Pasadena, and he called it the Parsonage. And it was kind of partly a bohemian gathering place, purported drugged in, but also where his group met. And this lady, Marjorie Cameron, heard about what was going on there and went to check it out. And the night she arrived, she saw a silver cigar-shaped UFO. And Parsons took this as a sign that he should involve her in these magic rituals. And so it was the three of them, Parsons, Hubbard, and Cameron, involved in what was called the Babylon working. And during the course of this Babylon working, according to legend, they summoned forth, some sources say it was an entity from Venus, but the records aren't quite clear on that. But this was in 1946, and many people suspect that Parsons, Hubbard, and Marjorie Cameron opened up a portal, a Stargate have you, and then the next year, 1947, began the modern era of UFOs with the sightings of Kenneth Arnold and the Maury Island sightings, and on. Roswell wasn't too long after that. So the legend is they opened up a door and something came in. I read one report where it was some writer was talking about this, and I forget the name, but of the fellow, but his impression was that Crowley was quite adept at opening up these portals, and the entities would come out, and he would afterwards close the portals. That was part of the magic rituals, but that Parsons wasn't as adept as Crowley, and they weren't able to close that portal, which ushered in the modern era of UFOs.
And there's also the connection, and it's something that it doesn't come up often, but it should, and it certainly seems to be on the record, but the connection between Kenneth Arnold and Parsons, and that these guys were like flying buddies, and these guys used to hang out, and when you think about the timing of that, what Parsons was up to, the other rumors that were going on in the Arroyo Seco, which is, where JPL is now, that part of Pasadena, L. Ron Hubbard, and then you throw in, it's just like everything that is nuts about society today and everything that we talk about, all of these guys, all the way to JFK, there's a connection there. These guys just seem to be a part of all of it. And it's and it's crazy. And it's not when you think about it, and let's go ahead and dive into this a little further, but at that time in 1915, 1916, 1917, nobody was nuttier than Crowley. And then, Parsons, who was a genius and a rocket scientist, a true pioneer in a burgeoning industry and science at that time. And then, of all things, UFOs and flying saucers, all of this, and Venus and interdimensional beings and the Brotherhood and everything else. It's all connected. And I don't want to go so far as to say it's a small world, but I wouldn't want to paint it. You know what I mean?
Part of it, though, too, when you start looking into these stories, these legends, and you dig deeper, you find more connections, and you find information that, well, maybe that wasn't quite accurate, or maybe, different writers embellished on things, but, the legend gets passed along, and after a while, it just takes on a life of its own. The deal you mentioned, and you might have read this in my writings, where I had heard rumor, and this came from a conspiracy researcher by the name of John Judge, who recently passed on. And he's the one, in a lecture years ago, he stated that Jack Parsons and Kenneth Arnold were flying partners.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that, and I went, well, that's mighty damn interesting.
Well, I think Peter Levenda as well has done quite a few public speaking about this very subject too as well.
Well, I'd like to, I know Levenda's work, he's done some great stuff, and I might quiz him about that because it was probably a year ago or so before John Judge died. I asked him about that. Where did you get that information?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I had friended him on Facebook, and we were chatting back and forth, and he said, he was kind of vague about it. That must have come from the later book. Farrell House put a book out on Jack Parsons in the early 90s. I go, no, this was in the late 80s, and it's in your lecture, Unidentified Fascist Observatories for UFOs. And so he's pretty vague about it. And it was like, okay, well, I have nothing concrete here, and I found nothing concrete, not to say he made that up out of whole cloth, but that little tidbit, while it's quite intriguing, hasn't been confirmed. So you run into a lot of that stuff. The deeper you dig into a lot of this material.
We just posted up Aleister Crowley's portrait of Lamb. And it's up on Twitter, so that's what that is there. And also, if you go over to jimmychurchradio.com, I think it is there too as well. And you can also, I'm actually going to make sure that it's up on our website really quick. And then also, you can go to adamgorightly.com and click on his rants column, by the way. If you ever want to assure yourself that you don't do anything for the next 6 months, click on the rant column. And what I really do enjoy about your writing, and I'm just going to pass this on for everybody, is a lot of writers, when they are blogging or they write, they don't write enough. Okay, and you know what I mean? I get to just as I think it's starting to get good. It's like they're done typing for the day and that's it. And with you, it keeps going and it's right and the information is there and it's a good read. It's a fun read, and you'll get enough is what I'm saying. You'll get your fill out of each article. So, and that's the truth. So that's one thing. That type of writing isn't for everybody, but it's what I look for. And I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
so.
In the world of the internet now, people are looking for short little 140 characters or less, But, I get a bit obsessive sometimes with the material. I wanted to point out and give a little hat tip to another blogger by the name of Reagan Lee. She's a lady in, she lives in Eugene, Oregon. She's been blogging for many years. You might be familiar with her. She has probably her most popular blog is Orange Orb. But anyway, she pointed out, this is probably a year ago or so, people have been looking at this LOM portrait, over the last few years, and she looked at it, and most people point out, well, the eyes are different.
Right.
But then Reagan said, well, look up above. I look up above on the forehead, and
that's the set eyes. Yeah.
Eyes.
Yeah.
And once you notice that, you can't not notice it.
No, it's rather obvious. And what Adam is referring to, so everybody go look at the picture. You can see it at jimmychurchradio.com. Just scroll down to Church Rant, the normal spot where I put whatever I'm going to talk. Oh, you like that? By the way, Adam, my daily topic is called Church Rant. And I thought about that. I thought, did I do this before Adam or after? And I think I did it before. I want to, but here we are together on the show when you're a guest. But there it is, Church Rant. Click on that. And when you look, you'll see what Adam is talking about and what I'm talking about. On the cover of Whitley's book, the one thing that was there are that scared the crap out of everybody, including myself, were those eyes. The eyes were just too much. Well, when you look at this, and what Adam is pointing out in Lamb with Aleister Crowley is that the eyes aren't there. If you take a second look and you really look, the eyes are there. And it's pretty bizarre. And you're absolutely right. The wraparound eyes, if that was just darkened in just a smidge, it would be the same picture. And so that begs to question, that's the question. Now, Whitley has, are these interdimensional beings? Are they grays from another planet? We don't know. But Whitley, in a weird way, not in a weird way, but he's kind of changed his tune as well lately in the last few years. Who the grays are and where they are coming from.
Yeah, Whitley's he's done some great work, and there's always been that element of, he's really not quite sure what was going on. There's that weird high weirdness psychic element to his experiences that, he's not positive they're ETs either. And I remember years ago when he started writing about this, he was working with Bud Hopkins, and Hopkins wasn't comfortable with the high weirdness element that Whitley was bringing into the equation. He wanted to keep it standard. It's more of the nut and bolt. It's alien grays. Let's don't bring all these weird other elements into the story. But Whitley was like, it's part of the story. All the high strangeness that goes along with these UFO sightings.
Well, Whitley. Okay, first off, he lives down the street from us here, and he's welcome on the show anytime. He's got. By the way, our thoughts are always with his wife. I know she's back out of the hospital, and so there you go. Whitley he's an amazing guy. Now, but I have to put my disclaimer on Whitley. The dude can write. Okay, so there's an asterisk that you have to add, an asterisk that you have to apply, at least with me, with Whitley. He's an amazing writer. So whether the events are embellished, whether they are real as they happen, and that's how he writes it, or not, it doesn't matter to me. What he writes is great. Okay, so are we clear on that? Are we perfectly clear? So now, based on that, his description now on who he thinks the grays and the blues are, because he's got the two different entities, is bone-chilling and quite scary. But he thinks that they are the other side, death. These are, this is what is occurring, on the other side. When you die, these are what you're going to see. This is what you're hanging out with, and it's a pretty spooky thing. But if you look at the way Whitley writes about this, you can see the connection to Crowley, and then you can see the connection to Lamb, and you have presented that evidence, I think, brilliantly. I can't even talk. Too much coffee. But do you get it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hit those Starbucks right now.
And part of this, once again, drugs work themselves into the equation as part of a ceremony. I mean, Crowley was dabbling in that, and I don't know if he was on something when he visualized or had his experience with Lam, but you can look at other researchers, and I'm sure you know the name Graham Hancock.
Yes. Uh-huh.
He is, I'm not sure if this was his latest book, but, he did Fingerprints of the Gods and all these things. Then I'm trying to remember the title. It's called The Paranormal or something like that. But he got into experimenting with ayahuasca, going to Peru and those places and going through the ayahuasca rituals, which is a sacramental ceremonial quote-unquote drugs that shaman use, and they're basically healing ceremonies. And, it's become trendy here in the last few years. You hear about Lindsay Lohan talking about her ayahuasca experience, but, Hancock, a decade or so ago, got into this, and during those experiences, he had visions of grays came to him during these, the ayahuasca experience, which I found pretty fascinating. It didn't surprise me, and if you look into the history of other people who have experimented with shamanic, hallucinogenic drugs, there's a common theme there of experience with otherworldly entities. A fellow named Terence McKenna, who was pretty famous, he did a lot of experiments on trying DMT, which is closely related to ayahuasca. And DMT is actually part of what's in the pineal gland of the human brain, so it's a natural product of the human brain. But under DMT, it's a very strange drug. I've never done it, but they smoke it, and there's a guy named Richard Strassman, a doctor who conducted studies with people, and the experiences they shared was, they quickly go into this other world and communicate with these entities. McKenna referred to them as self-transforming machine elves. But and so I'm getting off on a little tangent, but once again, the use of these type of drugs are also related to the UFO phenomenon.
Well, Graham's going to be on the show next month, and I'm excited about that. But and I've heard him talk quite a bit about his ayahuasca experiences, so much so that when I heard him describe it, that I went and did a bunch of research. I've heard about it over the years, and more certainly it's become popular, and people are talking about DMT and stuff. I have no desire. There's no way I'm going down that road. It looks a little bit, to me. Well, let's change the topic. But anyway, I've never heard Graham say that he had seen grays on this. Now, so I want him to tell me the story directly. But I've never heard him mention grays on ayahuasca. But what I do find fascinating is that a lot of these very serious mainstream researchers of late have come on this show or have talking about publicly about ayahuasca. And I don't understand. There's something going on there where they're compelled to talk about it publicly. That I find more fascinating than the drug itself. In that, what I mean is, Graham smoked pot for 20 years or whatever he did, right? He called it his drug, but he never talked about it. And I there's many celebrities, researchers, and people that write books or musicians that take drugs on a daily basis. They don't talk about it. But as soon as one of these researchers, has an ayahuasca, interlude down in Ecuador, suddenly they're singing about it on TMZ as soon as they get back to the States. And that's is what I find fascinating. They don't care. They want to talk about it. Can it really be that, life-changing? Is there that kind of epiphany that is occurring? You don't know. You haven't done it yourself, but certainly you're talking about it too. And I just don't, I don't get it. I really don't.
Well, yeah, it's been a life-changing experience from what we've heard recently. Graham Hancock has spoken out against the use of ayahuasca, basically because there's some stuff that went down. I'm not sure if it was Ecuador or whatever country that somebody ended up dead during one of these ceremonies. I don't know all the details, so I think if you talk to him now, he would be very cautious in encouraging others to get involved with that. Maybe he's against people dabbling in it now, but I'm sure I'd be interested to hear you ask him about the Greys, because I'm pretty sure he wrote about that in his book. I believe it's called The Paranormal. I might have the title wrong.
Right. Well, if there's a shaman connection to visiting with Lamb or other types of Greys or other interdimensional beings, and I've heard discussion about that. That's one thing, but that certainly doesn't explain. I don't think Whitley was ayahuasca bound during his.
I would say though that. And I look for these little hints when I read the books what was Whitley involved with that time, and it's not necessarily drugs. It could be other types of methods of altering your consciousness. And he was involved with a Gurdjieff group. Gurdjieff was a Russian mystic, and he had a chanting system for altering consciousness, and Strieber was dabbling in that around the time of his experiences. And that brings up more connections with Gurdjieff. Gurdjieff, this is around the turn of the century, he contacted entities from the star system Sirius. And so have a lot of other people. You might have read some of my writings on this. Robert Anton Wilson, who I have a chance to meet, and he's a big influence on me. Back in the early 70s, he was getting into Crowleyan magic, of all things, and did a ceremony called Invocation for my... It's called Conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel, and he contacted what he believed at the time were entities from Sirius. During that same period, the writer Philip K. Dick had experiences with entities from Sirius, as did another writer, Doris Lessing, and none of these three were communicating with each other. And so as you start looking into this, you see a lot of common threads going on, but part of it, once again, I think it's related to altered consciousness that allows us to be able to tap into the other and experience these things, whether it's induced by drugs, meditation, staring into a candle, like staring into the crystal ball, these type of things that open a doorway.
Well, with and it's this. You have those connections with the Greys, communication, visually, maybe even abduction, that being interdimensional. I don't think most reports with Greys, I'm not counting everybody, but you never really hear about a spaceship being involved, a flying saucer being involved, a craft in the background, the Greys stepping off a craft. you always seem to hear about, and this is a whole nother group of contactees, the ones that you hear about that are blonde and Nordic, there's always a craft involved. And that goes from Travis Walton all the way back to George Van Tassel.
Yeah, Adamski, and it. What they were seeing was.
But before we go there, and I'm going to cut you off, Travis Walton and George Van Tassel, those guys, I can nearly guarantee you, there's no ayahuasca involved. Okay, in those cases. But yet there is a definite line in between the two different phenomena. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. Let's and also there's always this. It's not serious, but they're always talking about Venus. Well, not necessarily in Travis's case, but certainly Van Tassel and his other crew out there.
Yeah, the early contactees seem to tap into Venus. To get back to the Greys a little bit, you're saying there's no craft. A lot of times what you'll see, or the reports you hear, there's a burst of light or something like that. And then sometimes they'll walk through the walls, materialize. That all seems very
Hey, Adam, what's your Twitter account? Your real one?
Adam Gorightly.
Okay, so there it is, everybody. It's at Adam Gorightly. It says something about maybe that's a false account. I don't know. Okay, they're trying to get you involved here on Twitter. I
can get in there and look at that.
Okay. Well, anyway, so let's get back to the Greys. Okay, so Greys, no ships.
Well, yeah. Well, sometimes there have been reports of ships, but more often than not, yeah, they're this kind of appearing, materializing. All of a sudden, they're there by a person's bed. Once again, we're talking about dream states, trance states. A lot of people are, coming out of some type of dream state, perhaps. Once again, this is not to say everybody. This is all being imagined, but they're in some type of altered state of consciousness, or not normal waking consciousness. And this is going on. But yeah, then you brought it back in the day. A lot of the contactees were seeing Venusians, and they reported ships, and a lot of them were the what they call the Bell craft. Now the ship that George Adamski and other people supposedly filmed, the classic saucer-shaped, and that could have been a combination of some psyops going on. As another theory, that was the Nazis supposedly were working on that same Bell craft, and perhaps there was Project Paperclip and all these things going on post World War II, where this technology was imported into the U.S. along with a lot of the intelligence agents that had been involved in all the Nazi networks. So maybe that technology got imported over here, and the pilots of these ships were usually these blonde-haired, blue-eyed, lovely Nordic gentlemen.
Well, do you make that connection with Van Tassel? And the reason why I'm a huge Van Tassel guy, okay? I think he is with Adamski. I got issues with.
Have you been out to Giant Rock?
I haven't been. I've been invited, and it has, for some reason, Adam, and this is no joke. Mm-hmm. Van Tassel has been the subject of so many of my guests over the last few weeks, and I find that thrilling. In that, Van Tassel was a guy that has largely been ignored in ufology. Even after he passed away, things just kind of changed in ufology. That's fine. Roswell came along, and with all of the Roswell books and the other stuff that happened in ufology. I get that. That's fine. But Van Tassel and what he did out in Giant Rock has largely been ignored. And when when I the other night, you had just brought this up. The other night, I probably heard this now for the 10th time, but I fell asleep listening to his Rotary convention speech. And you know which one I'm talking about, right? At the Rotary Club? Okay.
Not specifically.
It's 1956. So you can just go search George Van Tassel 1956 Rotary Club. That's all you got to do, and it'll pop up, and it's like a 2-hour speech. And you can hear a pin drop in this room, by the way. And he gives this speech, and it's 1956. And the stuff that he talks about in 1956, mind you, and how he discusses it is fascinating. His speech at the Rotary Club, everybody go listen to it and quote me right now. And if I am wrong, tell me about it. Go listen to that speech. That speech could apply today. 2014, he gives that speech at any UFO conference in this country, and it is spot on the money. And that's what fascinates me about Van Tassel. He is separate from everybody else. And he's the first guy to talk about this, these anti-gravity things or beams of light or digital consoles or meters or Nordics or blondes or spacesuits or just all of that stuff. And it's how he discusses it. And I just really think Van Tassel needs his day in court today.
Well, yeah, I've been interested in Van Tassel for quite a while, written about him over the years, and when you're out there, I have some people, you're going out to that Contact in the Desert
Yep.
thing. You're right in that neck of the woods. So there's a lady out there by the name of Barb Harrison. I think she's talking at the Contact in the Desert, and I've gone out there for many years and good friends with Barb, and she helps run the Historical Society, which is based out of the area of the Integratron and Giant Rock, and I'm sure she'd be happy to take you on a tour at some point. But, I don't know what your guests have talked about in the recent shows about Van Tassel, but just the Giant Rock convention, I mean, that was ground zero for the whole contactee scene back in the day. I think the first, they called them the Giant Rock spacecraft conventions. And I think the first year, I'm not sure, maybe it started in 54, sounds about right.
That's right.
They went till 77. And at its height, I heard the numbers swelled up to 10,000 people. And they were going out, that's some pretty harsh environment out there just to go set up and attend a convention. But these people did, and all the major people of the day showed up for those events, and they put up the speaker podium on top of Giant Rock. And so, quite a cool history there. And also nearby is the Integratron, which is another story into itself. Van Tassel, through directions from whoever specifically, the Space Brothers, created this, or was in the act of creating this domed building that was going to be basically a rejuvenation machine. It would work, and I really can't explain all the details, but like giant electronic capacitor that people would walk through and they'd come out the other side rejuvenated. Some people made it say it was a time machine, you'd come out younger. That's not what Van Tassel was saying was going to happen exactly, but that by using different levels of electricity, you could rejuvenate yourself. And people have used, electricity at different levels to actually do this. You can rejuvenate cells and that type of stuff. And there's another guy I know out there, Bob Benson. He's still around. He has a working scale model of the Integratron. I think it's set up at the Morongo Basin Historical Society, and he's a pretty cool guy too. He'll show you that. He actually was a student with Van Tassel, so he has all kinds of cool stories to share. So yeah, there's a rich history there for sure.
Yeah, and when you start to listen to George Van Tassel, not Adamski, you start and you listen to what he has to say. he had a very singular, focused point of advice and he a single point origin, I should say. Anyway, it's a part of ufology and history that when you look from today and you look back at what George had to say for himself and his message, it was absolutely incredible. And for some reason, it has disappeared. So if and now, well, this is the thing, Adam.
Well, they're all modern day ufology doesn't want to deal with the contactees because they're all painted with a broad brush that they were all a bunch of kooks or hoaxers, and they're seeing people from Venus. Well, Venus couldn't support life and all this type of stuff. So he tried to sweep all of them away, which isn't fair.
No, it's not. And now today, I think we look back and we start to read about Van Tassel and watch him speak and listen and read his stuff, and we realize that this guy was actually pretty cool, and he was pretty on it, and he's not as crazy as we think. I've got a little connection going out to his nephew, and you know who I'm talking about, Meeks?
I've never met him, but yeah, he lives right there by the Integratron.
Yes. So I want to get him on the show. But I think that we look back now and we realize that Van Tassel is somebody that we need to look into further and get his story out there. And I don't want to rub George in the ground, but the thing is, when you go and you look at he's got that one, I can't remember if it was KVOC, but the TV interview that he did with the Scottish guy. I can't remember his name right now.
Mm-hmm.
But
I remember that.
Yeah, that is a brilliant interview. And you listen to Van Tassel speak, and you look at his body language and the way that he talks about some very difficult subjects. He talks about time travel. He talks about intercepting television waves that are 6 years old. He's talking about these formulas, and he is just matter-of-factly belting this stuff out in a very there is no tinfoil hat hidden under his chair. He looks just like anybody else's dad or engineer that's working every day, drives to work in his suit, and there he is. He doesn't look crazy, and that's what I'm talking about. Where did this guy come from history? Why aren't we talking about him? Where's the movie? Why aren't we talking about him today? Well,
he was drawn to Giant Rock for some reason. I've heard other people tell that story. I might not have all the details right, but he worked at Hughes Aircraft, and at one point was just tired of the rat race. He found Giant Rock and moved out there and started, he ran an airport, Giant Rock Airport out there, and his wife ran a little diner, and so he was a businessman. He kept that enterprise going and they lived underneath Giant Rock as well, and that's where a lot of the weirdness, they do the channeling sessions, and you have groups meet there. I have one pretty cool Van Tassel story, and I was told this, and you can take it for what it's worth, but it from a guy named Robert Short. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's another contactee from back in the day, and he's still alive. And he told this story a couple of years ago. He was out at Giant Rock. He used to go out there quite a bit back in the day and hang with all the boys out there, all the different contactees. And one time, Bob Short claims UFO landed, I guess saucer shape landed, the ramp came down, and George Van Tassel drove his truck up the ramp and into the ship. It took off. Came back a little later. Here comes George, drive his truck on down the ramp, and it takes off, and Bob Short asked, well, what happened? And Van Tassel said, well, that was interesting.
What? I thought I had heard all of the Van Tassel stories. That one is fantastic.
That comes from Robert Short. You should interview him. He's still around, still has his wits about him.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. Hey, Adam, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to get back to Aleister Crowley, the channeling, bringing up Lamb, and those details. So let's do that in just a second. This is Fade to Black. This is the July 4th Adam Gorightly special. Adam, sit tight. We'll be back right after this. Shoot us an email to jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. And Twitter is @JChurchRadio. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us, everybody. Don't touch that mouse. Stay with us, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
This is William from La Crescenta, and I listen to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Jimmy Church. Church.
My name is Alan, and I listen to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
He's always giving it to you straight.
JimmyChurchRadio.com on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio, the revolution.
Fade to Black, the Dark Matter Radio Network, July 4th. Happy July 4th. Merry Independence Day, everybody. Be safe. Like I said, do everything I would do. Just do about half as much, and you'll be all right.
Okay, all right. Are you still with us, Adam?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I want to, it was posted here earlier, where can we find out about, Crowley's portal and how he was channeling Lamb. And I just happened to look this up, and this is from Kenneth Grant, and it's called Aleister Crowley and the Hidden God. Is that the best reference?
Well, that's one of the books, yeah.
Okay, because you go on, it's quoted here. It says, Crowley was aware of the possibility of opening the spatial gateways and of admitting an extraterrestrial current in the human life wave. It is an occult tradition, and Lovecraft. Oh, that's what I meant to say earlier. A lot of this reference to Lamb, too, also could have come from Lovecraft. And I think Lovecraft is responsible for a lot of different views. But anyway, gave it a persistent utterance in his writings, and that some transfinite and superhuman power is marshaling its forces with the intent to evade and take possession of this planet. And I just found that completely interesting. And it's something about Crowley that we just didn't know a whole lot about. I mean, when it comes to Crowley, we think about the sex, we think about the drugs, we think about, Satan, we think about the occult, the things that went on in Italy and at his mansion off of Loch Ness. We know about all of that stuff. But this whole gray alien connection is something that isn't talked about, and so there it is. I find
it's damn interesting. Kenneth Grant, that was his quote there. He was actually a student of Crowley, so he had some firsthand experience with all of this. There's a lot of biographies of Crowley, and they're all across the board that say he was this despicable child-sacrificing Satanist, and others that he was that was just a bunch of doodah, and that he was really a quite brilliant fellow with magic rituals. He conducted them in a very scientific manner. One thing people don't know about Crowley is that he was quite the mountaineer and climbed some of the highest peaks back in the day, and wrote about that in his the autobiography of Crowley. So he's a complicated, complex character who often gets once again painted with this broad brush, but that And yeah, these legends of Elam and all this are pretty darn intriguing. That's always fascinated me about his story, was this interdimensional, otherworldly contact that he was involved with.
Well, I think that Crowley was definitely a sex addict. That's the first thing. And he had a lot of money that he had inherited, so he was able to attract people to him because money attracts friends. Okay, so you have that aspect, and maybe a lot of it was feeding his sexual appetite, his addiction to drugs, and his fascination with magic, and the money that allowed him to propel all of that is one thing. And I think that's whether he made contact with the other side, that remains to be. We don't know, but the connection to Lamb and the drawing and what is going on today and interdimensional beings and the possibility of that is where it gets scary for me. I don't think there's a demon connection here, but I definitely think there's a fourth dimension connection.
Well, there was other drawings he did as well, and I can't point you to them specifically on the web, maybe if I did a little research, but that I've been told, and I have seen some of this, that look a heck of a lot like Men in Black as well.
And then you have the other connection that I think is fascinating, and I hate saying the word. I told you this earlier today. I don't like doing it on the air, but that is Scientology. And L. Ron Hubbard, being the writer that he was, and the belief in Scientology of an off-world connection and the connection back to Earth, and the experimentation that they were all doing going back to Parsons, and the connection that is there is one that can't be denied as well.
Right. I don't know what to add to that without going too deep in Scientology, but yeah, that's at the core, like secret societies, Freemasonry, and all of this. You have to rise up various levels to get to the secrets that only the initiates know, and that's part of what has emerged from Scientology over the years, that it's based on extraterrestrial contact.
Absolutely. And you mentioned one thing, and I want you to expand on this. But the eye that is there, which goes back to Egyptology, but Illuminati, the illuminated ones, and Freemasons, and our founding fathers, you have an interesting take on what that eye really means. I'm going to let you run with that for a second.
I'm not sure what you're referring to or what I wrote. I probably totally forgot about it now.
Oh, okay. Because, well, see, I'm a fan. I read your stuff, but you made some really interesting connections. And, well, okay, if you don't, that's funny. That's really funny. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I just thought that the connections that you made to that were just absolutely amazing. Now, one of the things I wanted to get into tonight with you is this show is about learning. It always has been, and everybody gathers every night, here, and I'm humbled by that, to learn something. And one of the things that I don't know a whole lot about, and I've learned most of it from you, is Charles Manson. And Manson has become a very taboo subject here in the States. And people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to hear about it. And you go and write about it in the way that you have. So why is it that he has become such a taboo subject? I mean, the mainstream media won't touch him. The whole incident just seems to have been erased from Americana. Why do you think that happened?
Well, I think he's still out there in the mainstream somewhat. People are still fascinated. I was on interviewed on a television show. It's a couple of years ago, and you see now and then, documentaries coming out on Manson. So he stayed in the imagination of people, but it was a long ago murder. We're talking, those went down in the late '60s, and but for me, it's always been, such a part of my youth growing up, and what those murders, what they did to the consciousness of the generation during that period. It was such a tumultuous time with Vietnam War and all the assassinations of political leaders, and of course Woodstock and those type of things were going on. And right at the height of the whole hippie counterculture thing that was going on, you had the Manson murders, which really painted the counterculture at that time, and people with long hair and whatever, in a quite negative light. And after that, you didn't see a lot of positive portrayals of quote unquote hippies or the counterculture in the media. And so and some suggest, and that's where I got interested in the topic, that perhaps that was by design to undermine the 60s counterculture.
Well, do you think, I think one of the parts of denial with society today is that one guy, I mean, here he was, he's convicted. He's not ever going to get out of prison, but he was never at the scene. And I think with society itself, that a man could, take these, children that didn't have any backgrounds of violence or anything else, and actually mind control all of them into doing these absolute horrific, I mean, Sharon Tate was pregnant, these absolute horrible, despicable crimes. And the fact that that was even possible, they don't want any reference to him today because of the possibility of that happening again. Do you think that's what it is?
I'm not sure. I've looked at this case for so long that I'm not sure what I really think about any of it anymore. I've looked at, part of it that thing that got me into looking at it originally back in the day, and it's going back a number of years, in the late 90s, was that there was all these conspiracy theories revolving around this Machiavellian character. How did he do this all by himself? Is that possible, or was there a hidden hand behind it all? And that's part of the theories that I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mae Brussel, famous conspiracy theorist. She was one of the first to start presenting the theory. She had a radio show out of Monterey back in the day. This was the early 70s, that Manson family was some type of military MK Ultra type mind control experiment, which I first started hearing that stuff. I went, wow, I wonder if there's something to that, and I started digging into it more. And May's thesis was that, once again, it was designed to undermine the 60s counterculture and basically splinter it, and by introducing drugs and all these other things into the counterculture, it kind of took their interests away from being anti-war advocates to more getting into Eastern religions and consciousness and these type of things, where the generation could be more easily controlled. As you look into the history, and there's some interesting stuff that's come out in recent years, like Dave McGowan's book on Laurel Canyon, and other people are talking about this now, a guy named Jan Irvin, that the whole introduction of LSD into the counterculture was basically had this design behind it. I don't know if I totally believe in that, but I think certainly the CIA was interested in looking into these drugs and seeing if they could be used to control minds under the auspices of their MK Ultra program. And at one time, the CIA had the largest stockpile of LSD. You can see those old films now where they were doing experiments in the Army, drugging these soldiers and having them go out and march and see what happens. But anyway, that was kind of May's thesis, that the Manson family were controlled. They used different MK Ultra type drugs to program, mind wash these kids. Then when the time came, they were like ticking bomb Manchurian candidates, and they were unleashed to set this program in motion. Now, the deeper you look into it, though, peel those onion layers back, you see more and more strange connections. I never actually, found a smoking gun per se, but one curious connection, there were two women that tried to assassinate Gerald Ford in the early 70s. One was Sarah Jane Moore. You might be familiar with
and the other, Squeaky Fromm.
Yeah,
yes.
Squeaky was part of the Manson family.
Right.
That's interesting.
Right.
In recent years, it's came to light that growing up in West Virginia, Manson knew Sarah Jane Moore. They were friends. And so what's the chances of that? Two women that knew Charles Manson, each are involved in these plots to assassinate Gerald Ford. So there's all these little odd coincidences associated with the Manson family. And, there was one thing that got Mae Brussel going in on all of this, interested, was a fellow named Preston Guillory. He still might be out there in L.A. as a private investigator, but he worked for the L.A. Sheriff's Office. They were keeping an eye on Manson when he was out in Spawn Ranch, and they knew he was a parolee, and they knew he had underage women and had weapons, and there was rape charges. And Preston Guillory, he was wondering, what the heck's going on? Why aren't we busting this guy? And basically, the word was, hands off this guy. And so, the message there was that they were using him for something. During that period in the 60s, you had the COINTEL program, where you had a lot of agent provocateurs who were being used to infiltrate into the counterculture. You had all the groups, the Weathermen and the Black Panthers, and they all had these COINTELPRO agents or agent provocateurs, and that's what Mae Brussel and Preston Guillory suggested. Manson was some type of agent provocateur involved in all of this.
In a way to see if they could, mind control the masses. Is that what all of that was coming to? Just leave Manson alone. We're seeing if this can actually work.
Well, that's the theory, that they were, to see if that would work, of creating these killers that would go out and basically, once again, the Manchurian candidate. And that's what a lot of people suggest was the ultimate goal of MK Ultra, to see if they could create a mind-controlled assassin, like in the movie The Manchurian Candidate.
There's a tweet here I just want to read. It says, Manson's mom was a guard or a nurse at the prison when they experimented MK Ultra on prisoners. Did you know about this?
That's a new one on me. That's pretty damn interesting.
Yeah, that's I didn't know about that either. I'm just reading that straight off of the twit feed. I'd like to I'm going to open up the phone lines really quick. 323-825-5045. 323-825-5045. You can also Skype in if you need to, or if you want to, Fade to Black 14. Okay, so the phone lines are now open, 323-825-5045. Before I let it get away, whatever happened, is Squeaky Fromm still in prison? Is she still alive?
Yes, she is. She got released a few years back, and she was in, last we heard, she was up in upstate New York somewhere, and she was actually filmed 2 or 3 years ago coming out of a Walmart or something.
No way.
Yeah. So she's out and about.
Yeah, I remember when all of that went down and the connection to Manson was in the headlines for a minute. But it seemed like they just chose to downplay the whole thing. But the whole Manchurian Candidate, the whole connection there, and the obvious things that should have been talked about just seemed like it all went away pretty quickly. And I don't know how the press can be manipulated like that, but it seemed like that connection with Squeaky Fromm, Lynette Squeaky Fromm, I'll never forget her face. It just seemed to all go away.
Yeah, you can find, recently I heard a little bit of this. It got released, was the interview right after her assassination attempt on Ford, and it's pretty curious stuff. She sounded like she was in she's either on drugs or in a trance state of some sort, much the same as, when they picked up Sirhan Sirhan after Kennedy's assassination, that he really was delirious, didn't know what was going on. So, yeah, there's the potential that was the deal. And, that's a great assassination attempt. It didn't work. Well, maybe they were just trying to send a message to Ford. Who knows?
Do you think it was drugs, or do you think it was Manson himself? If you took drugs out of the play, do you think that he would have had the ability to manipulate, or was it just, and they were on every drug in the world out there on the ranch, but... Oh,
he was a powerful personality, and, he was older than the rest of the bunch. He'd been a con man, was in prison. He was a student of people, so he was constantly learning. It said, and I'll just touch on this briefly, he learned... he was in a Scientology group in prison, so he learned a lot about that, and he became a clear in Scientology, and he was, learned a lot of tricks of how to influence people, and of course, there was the drugs, but there was also sex, and he had a whole rigmarole where he'd pick up these young women, and he'd have sex with them, then he'd kind of imprint the father figure thing on their brains, like he was the, this daddy complex going on. That was part of the deal. Then they'd take acid trips, and he'd portray himself as Jesus Christ, and also take them out into the desert where they were isolated. So all these different elements, you hear that these other people who, like Jim Jones taking a group out to Guyana and putting them, isolation. All these techniques, it seems Manson was using to control his followers. Did he have some help in this? Well, perhaps a lot of people suggest Jim Jones had some help from as well. If people looked into that story, is all.
I was going to bring up Jim Jones earlier. And it's funny how when we talk about this type of subject, Jim Jones is always, the first thing that everybody brings up. But before we get to Jim Jones, and I'm more than happy to just spend some time on that one, I lived down in Panama when the whole Jim Jones thing went down, not too far away from Jonestown. And, at least closer than Indianapolis would be too, but I was down there. And so before we get to that, do you think that with Manson's run in prison, because now you've taken the girls out of the picture, you've taken the sex out of the picture, well, at least man on woman sex. You take all of that out of the play. You take the drugs out of the play. Do you think he is so powerful of a personality that he's able to manipulate the prison system and maybe the guards? And do you think he's got another circle built around him there because he is so magnetic?
I don't think so much anymore, not sure how much of that mojo. He does have a young lady who's, I guess they're planning on getting married or something, but, you always have those weird kind of groupies. But I think, prison's a different thing, and a lot of Manson, that was his school. That's where he grew up. That's where he learned a lot of things of how to manipulate people. But, a lot of prison inmates are pretty wise to that. There was some recent pictures of Manson that came up where he had a couple of black eyes. And
I did see that.
Yeah, so that kind of tells you something. When Manson first got, busted for the, put in prison, convicted, he had a lot of connections to the Aryan Brotherhood because his, on the outside and on the inside, because he was hooking up some of his women with the Aryan Brotherhood, and they protected him inside. So, he was protected in those early days, and I think for the most part, from what I hear, as you get older, men who want to have sex with you aren't quite as interested anyway. And if, for the most part in prison, he's been isolated a lot of the time from other prisoners. Coincidentally enough, he shared a cell next to Sirhan at Corcoran State Prison for many years. I bet they had some interesting conversations.
Well, and there's another weird little thing about Manson and swinging this back to Aleister Crowley, and I touched upon this earlier. And it's this: with Crowley, he had the money. The money bought the drugs. The money bought the nice house, whether it was in Italy at the compound there or what was going on off of Loch Ness. But that buys friends, and when all of that went away, Crowley was just a broke, living on state money, living in a halfway house in London. And, his magnetism went away. As soon as he was broke, when you're broke, you find out who your friends really are. And we've all gone through that. And it's the same thing with Manson. And if Manson was on the streets today without any money or anything else, or no drugs or anything, would he have that same magnetism? And the answer is, to me, absolutely not. There was a reason for his magnetism back then. And then you throw in the same kind of thing with Jim Jones, where, Jones had the money, the donations from the church. He had a certain amount of magnetism there and a certain amount of power that drew people to him. But if he didn't have all of that, if he wasn't a reverend, if he wasn't a preacher, and he didn't have the money from the church and everything else around him, or the compound down in Jonestown, would he have that same magnetism to him? And I would say probably not as well. I don't know what why. And Waco too, you kind of have that same situation there. But I say no. I really don't. There's a reason why people are drawn to you. People aren't drawn to, somebody that's out of work, somebody that's unemployed. Excuse me. But yeah, do you understand my point?
Mm-hmm. Jim Jones was pretty shrewd as well. He had a lot of political alliances in the Bay Area, and was really known as being involved in all these civil rights causes and all of this stuff. So he had a lot of goodwill built up with different politicians, And so that's why it took so long for them to go over there and see what the heck was going on. Anybody, if you isolate a group of people and you every day you ram down whatever it is trip you're ramming down, they'll just be conditioned, and if you're not feeding them food and all these little things or drugging them, you know, you get the legend of being this charismatic figure, but you know, there's all the other things that make that conditioning work, you know. So yeah, Adolf Hitler or whoever it is, they have an apparatus behind them that makes this type of conditioning work on large numbers, you know, groups of people.
Sure. There's the allure there. There's power. And you can connect that to all well, now if you want to throw Hitler into the mix, you know, you've got that same kind of connection with all of them. And if you take any of that away, you've just got a doofus. And that's who is standing, you know, and as powerful as an image Crowley has today. But that's an image that is created today. He didn't have that image in 1947 when he died, or 1946, 45, 44, 43. He was an unknown person, you know.
He died in 1947.
Yeah,
the year of the launch of the modern era of UFOs.
A lot of things happened in 1946 and 1947. A lot of you know, and you talk about that too as well. And when he's
atomic bomb.
Yep. Oh, I wanted to comment on that. I'm glad you brought that up. Where the stories of you know, Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the bombs going off and the alerting to the rest of the galaxy. That here, okay, you know, the human race has taken the turn, and that there's the portals that might have been opened with the ignition of those two bombs.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I've got a comment on that. I want you to go ahead and comment on that part of the story too, or the myth, I should say.
Well, yeah, I think you just stated it. All those things seem to line up. You know, you had what was going on with Parsons and Hubbard and Cameron. They had, you know, they did their magical working in 1946. Had some portal, theoretically had some portal or something going on there, some Stargate that they had opened, and you know, in around that same time, you're having the actually the blasts at Nagasaki. That was 45, right?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, you had that going on. Maybe that enlarged, or maybe that was somehow tied in with their rituals of opening the Stargate. Maybe that helped open that up. I mean, talk about a conjuration, creating a elemental force of you know, destructive nature that, and also it's also the creative force of an atomic bomb. So there's that element, and I think I talked about that in one of the pieces. You had all these things going on. Crowley died in 47, and you had Roswell happened in 47. There was a number of other things. They discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947. There was a whole list of oddities that happened during that period. Around the same time as well, I talk about LSD was discovered in
1948. Yeah. Well,
so a lot of things were going on in human consciousness at that time that was kind of catapulting us into our strange future.
One of the now. Well, this was what I wanted to touch upon and take your writings a step further. So right after everything that went down in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, the World War II ended, but what we had was a huge amount of atomic bomb test that went on not only in Nevada but off in the Pacific Ocean, and then you had the Soviets doing their thing, and them with all of the nuclear testing that went on, and then we had a sudden proliferation of UFO sightings and beings that were being met. Do you think those were portals that were also being opened atomically? And do you think that there was a connection with the huge amount of UFO activity that went on all around the world at the very same time?
Well, this might have something to do with human consciousness too. Are these entities coming from? Are they extraterrestrials, or perhaps are they entities that have always been here on Earth? We don't know for sure, but the messages coming from the Space Brothers, and really things cranked up. As you mentioned, you had Kenneth Arnold sighting was in 1947. You had Maury Island and Roswell, but then the contactee period really started in 1952, and it's funny, if you look through a lot of the reports and all the classic contactees, they all seem to touch on that date, 1952. And they all started delivering this message, and it was there was concern by the Space Brothers that we were going to not only annihilate ourselves, but screw up the cosmos by what we were engaging in here. And they were bringing this, the Space Brotherhood message of love and light, and that we needed to change our way was the basic message coming through the Space Brothers. Of course, this type of stuff concerned the government. They started hearing these messages about how we need to lay down our arms and all that, and some sectors of the government are going, is this some type of commie message? Are the Russians behind that?
Right.
And so you had all this, these type of things going on. But
well, and exactly. And there's one thing, and I find this absolutely fascinating, in the message that has always been delivered, or it seems to have been repeated, I should say, which is them are not going to allow us to destroy ourselves. And the weapons are never going to be used, and they will always interfere. And whether it's shutting down Malmstrom Air Force Base or sending us the message that they can turn off our nuclear missiles, or whatever that message may be, I can tell you one thing: we've never used a wepen offensively.
That's a good point.
Yeah, we've never. It's never the trigger.
Which is kind of surprising. I was born in 1960, so I grew up with all that stuff. The whole Cold War tension, and it seemed like many times we were on the precipice of that happening. It's amazing it never did.
Accidentally or otherwise. No, and I find that to be fascinating. And now, I hate to say coincidence, or is there some synchronicity to it, or anything like that? I don't know. But what I do know is that when somebody says matter-of-factly that they've channeled, or they've contacted, or they've had a message, or they've been spoken to, or they're a contactee, and the message is, it ain't going to happen. Well, that's a pretty matter-of-factly, statement. But you know what? It hasn't happened. It hasn't. And nothing has even come close. And the couple of accidental drops that we've had, right here in the United States, we dropped a bomb right into South Carolina. Then we've got the other one that still hasn't been recovered down in Louisiana, that dropped into the mud down there. I think it's right off of New Orleans. And that bomb's never been recovered. But you know what? Neither of those went off either. And there's nothing been in nothing in a populated area. It's always been testing, but nothing has been used. And I find that to be fascinating. I really do.
Yeah, me too. That's interesting you bring that up. So we should say thank you, Space Brothers.
Yeah, totally. No, absolutely. Hey, listen, I'm looking at a couple of things here that are going off on Twitter, and also with some texting that's going on about the Bridgewater Triangle DVDs. Okay, you know what? I'll give 2 away. That's it. I'm going to save the rest for later for a special thing. But I do have 2 of them here, so I will give them away. And 323-825-5045 to everybody but Jim Malliard. And there you go, Jim, if you want to call it. 323-825-5045. We are speaking with Adam Gorightly. This is our 4th of July special. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. And I'm going to take 5, and when I come back, we will be taking your calls. Adam, go get a quick drink of water. Let's take a quick break, and we'll come back, and we will reset. The first call is coming in from Las Vegas. All right, let's just go ahead and grab it really quick. All right, you're on with Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey, this is Rick Sennett.
Oh, hey, Rick, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. The dog isn't completely freaking out. The kids are finally mellowing out, so it's all good.
Oh, you're talking about fireworks?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in Las Vegas, I mean, the entire strip is just going off.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I've never done... Oh, by the way, say hi to Adam Gorightly.
Hello, sir. How's it going?
Okay, hold on. Now I think Adam can hear you. Okay, Adam.
Hello, sir. How's it going?
Good. Who is this?
This is Rick Sennett, listener to the show, calling in from Las Vegas. And he was just telling us that you didn't hear this, the fireworks have finally calmed down out there in Las Vegas. I've been to Las Vegas for New Year's. I don't know if I've done Las Vegas on 4th of July. And I can only imagine the insanity that is the Strip on 4th of July and what goes on. Because they party any night anyway. It's always going on. But 4th of July, oh, man.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. That's the Vegas thing. And you live here long enough, you just avoid the Strip. I mean, I'm sure Dale will tell you that one. You avoid the Strip like the plague.
Yeah, I love the Strip. And one thing, and I know you've got a question for Adam, and we'll get to that in a second, but there's one thing, unless you have been to Vegas and walked, not drive, but when you walk in the Strip and you walk from, say, go from like Mandalay Bay to Caesar's Palace, or Treasure Island to Caesar's Palace, or the Venetian to Caesar's Palace, and then you realize how friggin' big those hotels are and how far you have to walk in between them. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. The Strip is big. It is not small.
You know, what's funny is I used to do IAT for Caesars, and the area that I covered was basically what we used to call High Fob, which is Hera's Imperial Palace, O'Shea's, and half of it's gone. It's now the Link.
Right.
Ferris wheel.
Uh-huh.
Well, actually, you get mad if you call it a Ferris wheel. It's an observation deck or observation wheel, whatever. But Caesar's Palace, the footprint of Caesar's Palace can fit all of High Fob. I mean, Flamingo, Imperial Palace, all of that can fit inside just that one casino's footprint.
I remember one time I was meeting a group of friends out on the Strip in front of Caesars, and I was up in my room in the new tower, the old tower. It doesn't matter. I'm up on whatever, the 20th floor. And they said, okay, we're down here. They called me on their cell phone. We're down here. We were going to go eat somewhere. I said, okay, I'll be right there. I left my room. By the time I got to them, it was 30 minutes later. Because you know, you've got to walk down the hallway of the hotel. That's the first thing. You got to get to the elevator. You've got to ride the elevator down. You've got to come out of there. You got to walk through the casino. You got to get to the exit. When you get to the exit, you got to walk on that huge Caesars bridge, right? That goes all the way down to the Strip. And it's a walk, man. It is no joke. And it was 30 minutes. You know, you can see it from the window. It doesn't look that far. People don't realize how big the Strip really is. And it's the truth.
Well, the other thing that really gets the tourists in Vegas is, honestly, you can buy a beer cheaper than you can buy water. And so when it's 120 degrees outside, they've been chugging, 50-cent drafts all day, haven't had a single glass of water. And all of a sudden they're wondering why they're getting dehydrated. And next thing you know, they're getting picked up in an ambulance with an IV running. It's like, well, you've been drinking beer all day at 120-degree temperature, and now you've got the bright idea to try to walk from Caesars all the way down to, like, the old end of the strip down by, Fremont.
Yeah, right.
Don't be time. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I absolutely love Vegas, and there's one other story I will tell this really quick. I had to cross the street, and I was staying at Mandalay Bay, and I had to go over to Bally's or the Tropicana, but right there on the corner. Now, and what everybody needs to understand is they're all right there. And I told my friend, I said, man, I'll be there in about 5 minutes. And I had to meet him at the Tropicana. We were going to a steakhouse. He goes, dude, you're not going to be here in 5 minutes. I'll see you in an hour. And I remember looking at my watch, and it was like at 5 o'clock. And he goes, I'll see you at the restaurant at 6. And that's it. I felt like I ran a marathon by the time I got there. And it's right across the street. People don't realize how big everything really is. It's absolutely humongo huge. Okay, now that
what's really bad is everybody walks the same way they drive.
Oh, man. All right, Rick, you're on with Adam Gorightly. And now that we've gotten all that out of the way, do you have a question for Adam?
Yeah, with the belief, it's very common. With contactee stories, ranging from the 50s, there are space brothers, everything's going to be fine, we're not going to let anything happen to you, Do you think that that's maybe making like a Deus Ex Machina type of scenario, and in a way kind of promoting bad behavior? Because here you have all these humans acting like little kids that, oh no, it's cool, mom and dad will pull us out of the fire. Do you think that maybe in a way that belief is keeping us on the path that we're going? And maybe they don't quite understand humans, like, if we can get away with something, we will do it for as long as possible. So, do you think that maybe that is promoting the bad behavior of humans?
Well, that's a pretty interesting concept. It's kind of like it's all good. But those early the bonds or whatever, they encourage us to change our evil ways. But yeah, if that's always in the back of the head, our heads, will you don't have to really worry about it anyway, because we'll make sure you guys don't launch your nuclear bombs. So that's an interesting concept. Of course, that model of what an extraterrestrial was really changed quite a bit here, in starting in the 70s and the 80s, where the contactees were benefactors of this universal wisdom, where later on the abductees became victims.
I'm listening. Sorry about that. We're resetting some music here that is playing that shouldn't be playing. That was playing in the background. Well, and Rick has left us, so go ahead and I'll let you continue.
So it's just an interesting comparison between the old school contactees. I look back at those people; they seem to be a lot of fun, whereas. Now the role, if you're a contactee, you're more of a victim, victimized by whatever that force is, and you kind of see that maybe that's a microcosm of what society has become.
Well, why do you think?
In a lot of ways, because people perceive themselves nowadays, a lot of people do, as victims in one way or another to the government or this or that. They have no control of their lives.
Well, I find that, you know what? I have thought about that, and I find that fascinating. And let me tell you why. When you look at, and again, I'll bring up Van Tassel, or you bring up the Brotherhood, and you bring up all of the contactees and talk about their experiences,
and what they talked about and how they related to ET or the UFO hypothesis, and that was one phase. And then you get to a little bit with Betty and Barney Hill. It was kind of touched upon a little bit, but then when you kind of fast forward to Travis Walton, and then now we've got a nightmare phenomena going on, and we've got medical procedures, and we've got an absolute frightening painting of the abductee and the experience. Why do you think that happened?
Well, I don't know. People, it's being traumatized by it. There's support groups for abductees. I don't know if this. You can look at it at different ways. Maybe just, unfortunately, a bad crop of extraterrestrials came around that period from Betty and Barney onwards, or perhaps it's just a shift in human consciousness, how we perceive these things. With once again going back to the contactees, it was usually it was seen, those experiences, they were empowered by those. It launched George Van Tassel to do all these things, and a lot of the other contactees to do something at least they've perceived as positive in their life. And so why has that changed? Is it human consciousness, the way we perceive things now as being more of a victimized society, and we project that into our experiences with the other? That's one theory. I don't know. Well, it's an interesting contrast.
Yeah, and then I think we've kind of, again, with the experiencers, we've kind of moved away from the Travis Walton experience. Now, I've had Travis on the show, Adam, and I truly believe.
He's totally believable.
He is, man, and I have compassion for him. I really do.
Now, what's odd about his experience? I don't know if he touches on this all the time, but it's kind of like there's something similar to Betty and Barney Hill. Both Barney talked about it. The first entities he saw were they weren't the Greys; they were somebody who's dressed like Nazis.
Right.
And Travis Walton also talks about that, too. There are some humanoid figures that are dressed in military-type uniforms, and that brings in the whole, what do they call it, My Labs, that, once again, this is part of some, it's not aliens, it's a program to...
intimidate,
to see if, they can push the agenda that it's actually ET contact, when behind the scenes they're programming and seeing how they can manipulate, ostensibly maybe to cover the black op programs that are going on.
Right. And the other thing with Travis that I found totally fascinating was blondes. Humanoid, and they were on a craft, and I've just and what I wanted to say, I had Nadine Lalich on the show not too long ago, maybe 2-3 months, and then I went and saw her speak publicly about a week later after she was on the show, and I got to meet her in person and listen to her. Now she is, she's a professional. She's she's in law. I don't think she's an attorney, but she's been in the law profession for a long time, dozens of years. And so she's not your typical contactee either, but her message is also one of peace. And I definitely think that is where she's going. I don't think, what I mean is she's kind of moved away also. I think that her message that she has received is also one of peace too as well. And I don't think her experiences were at all frightening like Travis's. And and again, I don't know why it's all kind of singled out, but let's get back to taking that break. I need to take a break. Let's take a break. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. We are here, our 4th of July special with Adam Gorightly. We are talking about all kinds of different things tonight. And when we come back, we will be taking your calls. Stay with us, everybody. 323-825-5045. I'll be back right after this. Going to do that Bridgewater Triangle DVD. I'll be back.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will. On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
He's always giving it to you straight.
JimmyChurchRadio.com. On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Oh, yeah. 4th of July. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Shoot us an email to jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. I haven't even checked email tonight, by the way. Been having this conversation with Adam. And, yeah, okay. Sorry, I kind of ignored everybody. But let me see here. I'll open up the bottom one first. Adam, are you still with us? There you are.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, I don't know if this has anything to do. You know what? We've got to twist the conversation into this subject, though. But I'm going to read this email really quick. Aloha from Hawaii. I lived in Paradise Cove in Malibu for over 25 years before moving to the Big Island, another UFO hotspot. And I witnessed at least 100 UFO and USO sightings while living there in Malibu. Some of the strange lights were schools of Humboldt squid. Most weren't. I witnessed a huge pyramid-shaped object surfaced for at least 3 hours at about 4 a.m. while fishing on the pier in the cove. Several creatures emerged from the portals on the side of the craft and appeared to be performing repairs. Interesting. I was mesmerized and seemed to be unable to look away. I know where there are forces at play, and they are unexplainable. Mahalo for your time. David from Hawaii. Now, he's referring to the Malibu Deep Underwater Base discovery. And you and I sort of got into a conversation on Facebook where somebody introduced you to the Malibu Deep Underwater Base, and it tagged me, and then we all started having our conversation about it. And again, I'm sure you heard what Richard Dolan had said earlier tonight. And so I ask everybody the same thing, and I'll do this of you, Adam, if you don't mind. What was your first impression when you first saw the image? What went through your mind?
I thought, well, that's pretty weird. I wonder if that's like a photoshopped, if they enhanced that image. And part of the story, I didn't know it was connected with you, or actually where it emanated from, but it tagged onto it was, is this an alien base? And my thought was, well, why are we jumping to alien base? Why do we make that leap immediately? Why, if there is some type of entry there, maybe it could be related to a secret government-based, but it is a different, definitely interesting images there. And as we discussed it today, those, they weren't enhanced or anything else done to them. You pulled them, right off of the Google aerial imagery. So pretty intriguing, pretty strange. I'm curious about it.
Well, the connection to ufology and UFO and alien, that question has been presented to me, oh my goodness, probably 10 times a day. Why are you going there first? Well, anybody that would ask that question just doesn't know about Malibu. And Richard Dolan had said it earlier on this program. If in ufology, anybody that studies the subject knows about Malibu, knows about Catalina, knows about Marina del Rey, that little triangle that is there, and that is the connection. And anybody that has studied ufology and knows about the amount of, look at the email that I just opened. That was just an email that was opened. I hadn't read that yet. And that person says that they've had over 100 sightings while they lived in Malibu. And that is the connection. It is an immediate connection if you study ufology and the one thing.
I have though, but I wasn't quite aware of there was that much activity in that area.
Well,
but then again, there came a point. I looked into a lot of the history of ufology and read the reports over the years. Then at some point, and this is over the last couple decades, I started tuning out new information because I was always disappointed. It never amounted to anything.
Exactly, Adam. For the last 20, 25 years, we haven't, going back to Area 51, and when the revelations came out about that, and Bob Lazar came forward and made us all aware that about Area 51 and the country itself, certainly put Area 51 on the map, and we were able to discuss it, investigate, try to get out there and look into the reports, not only from him but from other people too as well. Now, here we have this structure that is a clear structure, whether it's man-made or natural. And honestly, it doesn't really matter. It's that it is there, right in the middle.
It's kind of creepy too.
It's very Batcave creepy. Oh, there's no doubt about that. I'll never forget the first time I saw the image, and looked at it and just went, say what? And it's here, and that's the thing. If I
how did you come across it?
I was sent the image from one of our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, he sent me the top view of it, and when I looked at it, and that was the first thing I thought, okay, that just looks strange. It's right there off of the coast. It's right next to Magoo. It's right next to Wainimi. It's not very far from China Lake. It's right in the middle of all of this activity that has been going on forever. The funny thing about the timing of it was I just had Preston Dennett on the show. I just had Bill Burns on the show, not together. They were on separately, but one of the things that, and Steve Murillo too. One of the things that we had been talking about, and Ann Druffel, was all of this activity between Catalina, Marina del Rey, and Malibu, and it was going on for a while. So it was on my mind. And when I get this image, of course I'm going to jump to that conclusion right away. I had a genuine aha moment with it, and you know what? So did Bill Burns, and so did Preston Dennett. And so did Steve Murillo, where everybody just went, wow, you found it, and just like Richard Dolan had just said, even if it is natural, who's to say that it hasn't been used and
right, yeah.
and it's a definite easy conclusion to take. One of the things that I've kind of spoken about this a lot, but one of the things that I have said a lot is we don't know what it is, really. Honestly, we don't, but we've got to find out what it is. And Stephen Bassett was on the show last night talking about this too. No matter what it is, we need to go out there and get the investigation done. What we do have, we have to look at the evidence. What is the evidence that we have? Well, we have Google Earth images that clearly show something. It's not like these are pictures of UFOs or other things. No, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a structure that is sitting in the water off of the coast of Malibu. We're not talking about Mars. We're not talking about the moon. We're not talking about Jupiter. We're not talking about, anything like that. We're talking about a structure that is sitting off of the coast of Malibu.
I heard a little bit of your conversation with Richard, but I didn't get all the details of how you're going to tackle this. But
it's simple enough. One of the things I was just sent some images again today from another friend of the show from Belgab, and Belgab is an Art Bell forum with very, very informed people on there. It's a trippy place to go and hang out, and fascinating, but very smart people. And so I was sent these images today that one of the things that people have brought up, and some pretty famous researchers out there, is that it's so deep in the water. Our first run at topography that we took at this showed that it was sitting in about 1,400 feet of water. Well, now there's new images that are showing it at only 46 meters or about 150 feet. Now, if that is the case in the last ice age, that puts this structure clearly above sea level. And again, we have imaging and information that's coming in from all kinds of different sources all day long. It comes in, the emails come in. We have to take the time to research it, to go and look at the imaging that they are sending us, and find out what we have here. Well, now I've got another set of images that we have to go and take a look at with different reports and different depth levels. And the truth be told, no matter who sends us images or who is commenting on it, whether it's Richard Dolan or it's myself or it's John Anthony West or whoever wants to comment and when I say comment, give us their input from an intellectual side, is none of us have been there. None of us have been under the water. None of us have been to this structure. Nobody. Not even David Schwartz from the USGS. No matter who wants to make their comments, nobody's been out there with a boat. Nobody's dropped into the water. Nobody has seen this firsthand. All of this is presenting theory, and that's the thing.
How about a helicopter flight?
Well, yeah, we could do that. I mean, it's still sitting under a significant amount of water, and sunlight, no matter what, dissipates rapidly. And I haven't done scuba diving. I've only what's the opposite of scuba dive? Snorkeled. I've only snorkeled. But you know how dark it gets, and you could have the cleanest sunlit water ever, but once you get to a certain depth, things get dark really quickly. So when it comes to the Malibu base, I have no clue. A helicopter ride, that's a pretty good idea. I can certainly arrange something like that. We are, we're arranging an expedition right now, and we're getting close to making the final announcements on it.
Cool.
Well, what I don't want to do, I don't want to announce anything too far in advance. I don't want to tip the hat to anybody else that could potentially block us or be waiting for us when we get out there and tell us that we can't do it. I don't want that to happen.
That's another issue I was thinking about. Why hasn't has anybody ever caught wind of this before? And maybe they've ran into some resistance if it is, related to.
That would be a bigger story than the discovery itself. Yeah. That's the truth. And the other thing is this: is we have put this out into the public. All of us. We did the releases. We time-stamped. We dated. The images were grabbed, and everything is done. So if I go and tip the hat, that's not the way to go. We need to just go out there, get the expedition planned, and head out there with a boat or a ship. And if the Coast Guard is there, if they intercept, or the Navy or the Marines or whatever, and anything comes in and interrupts or stops us or confiscates our cameras and our imagery, well, then we have a problem. And that's a problem that I invite, because then you have to say, what are you hiding? What's the big deal? Or they're going to let us go down there and videotape, because there is nothing to hide. And we'll find out what is really down there. That's the bottom line. If I hadn't have gone, Adam, check this out. This is the truth. If I had taken another approach here, and one thing is for sure, I sit in the hot seat here. I'm the guy on the microphone, not somebody else. So I make the decisions, and I certainly speak about what I want to speak about. If I had taken another approach, and I've said this to everybody in the media, if I would have said, hey, we found a rock out off of the coast of Malibu, that's not news. Nobody would be talking about that. Nobody would care about that. There's plenty of rocks out there. Oh, we found a cliff out there. Oh, we found an undersea river out there. I don't know if that would hold, or if there would have been enough for people to talk about. And and I can't say that it's a river, or if it's some type of, I don't know. If I want to say that it's, if I want to hypothesize or theorize that it's an undersea base of some kind, yeah, I can report that, because it's my theory. But you know what? That's what people are going to talk about. And and that's why I did it the way that I chose. I could have theorized on anything else. You and I mentioned something earlier. You and I were talking, and it's this. There's like 4 or 5 different factions of people out there when it comes to the base. There is the alien connection. There is the military connection. There's the military ET connection. And then there's it's the natural phenomena connection. And everybody out there wants to say it's this, or it's this, or it's this, or it's this. Okay? It's just everybody's views. I just happen to have mine. That's all. I'm just one part. I'm 1/4 of this. But that's it. Anybody can say what they want and theorize on what it is. But no matter what you choose of those 4 or maybe 5, it's all cool.
And it's something. There's an odd structure there that we need to investigate.
Yeah, and what if
find out?
And you know what's
going on?
That's right. And you know what's worse is not saying anything at all. What if I would have opened up that image and said, yeah, that's pretty cool. That's cool. All right, whatever. And moved on to the next email and just forgotten about it. That's worse. That is not the way to handle this.
This reminds me back in the day, and going back, researching UFOs, the cheap little, you get paperbacks, you could, all the little UFO paperbacks that came out, and this is back in the 60s, 70s. And that's where a lot of people were exposed to this information. I remember in the 70s having some of these, and, they were decent material, and they covered different UFO sightings, and some of the most curious ones were these reports of UFOs or saucers coming out of the ocean. And a lot of the reports, as I recall, came from like South America or Central America, which kind of blew my mind. It's like, what? What's going on there? I thought these were coming from outer space.
Right.
What's that all about?
Well, and Bill Cooper did the same thing. He had his about face. He had his famous sighting where he had, saw a saucer, a USO.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep. And then years later, he backpedaled and said, well, he saw what he saw, but he doesn't think it was UFO. He now thinks he was, given disinformation and that it was a UFO, otherworldly, but now he feels that it was craft that we had built ourselves and it was of this world. You know what? Either way, this Malibu deep underwater base could be that significant. Well, it doesn't matter.
Either way, yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, it's a story.
Yeah, either way. And it's going to be great to get to the bottom of it. Maybe, maybe it'll be a new cliff and we'll call it Dale Romero Ridge. I don't know. But in that of itself, it is also fascinating. I've got a couple of people that have just tweeted me saying, we can't let you get out of here without your views on the Malaysian MH370. Do you have any ideas what happened?
No.
Really? I mean, okay, well, wait a minute. That's today.
Well, we all have speculation. God, I was, tuning into CNN and watching that spectacle for a while. It's like, what happened to real news? I miss headline news where you could find some outlet that was covering the different news stories, and all of a sudden it was about the Malaysian thing nonstop. Not to say that isn't an important story, but God, there's so many twists and turns in this thing. Who knows?
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on it?
Well, I talk about it every night. What I find sad about it is how the news has chosen to talk about, whatever, what's the hottest bikini body of celebrities, whatever, that they have completely moved on.
Oh, it was the big story for 2 weeks, and it was like, this there's not going to be any closure to this anytime soon.
Yeah, and it was probably right,
and or whatever.
Exactly, and it was probably a good solid month where for a couple of weeks there, CNN was 24 hours a day on this thing.
Ridiculous.
And they were reporting live all night long, and now it's not on any website. It's not on any headline. It's not there. It has completely disappeared. And that is what I find very, very sad. And why is that sad? Yeah, it's the families. Okay. No, but that's not what I'm referring to. It's sad because the government knows, Australia knows, probably India, probably Vietnam, probably Malaysia, China. They all know. The Great Britain, Rolls-Royce, Boeing, they know exactly where this plane is, whether it's crashed or sitting on the ground somewhere. It doesn't matter. They know. And that's what is sad. And it's frightening. And I know it in my bones. And you know what? Probably most of the population on planet Earth knows that that's the truth too. That they know where that plane exactly where it is, and if it crashed or not. That's the fact, and that is what I find is sad.
It's one of in this age where everything is tracked nonstop.
Exactly. That was the one guarantee. That was the one guarantee after 9/11. That every single plane at all moments of the day, that was the guarantee as a passenger. That
we're all tracked if we got whether it's. I know at certain points, supposedly on the plane they can't track cell phones or whatever, but there's so many devices everybody carries on us, and it's like this thing disappears.
Absolutely. I am looking at, okay, Lou, just so you know, I'm going to post this. I'm looking at this now. Okay. I'm talking to one of our listeners on the show. Yes. Now, what does that tell you, Lou? Okay. I'm looking at pictures of the artist renditions of a Navy undersea base. And I'm telling you right now, it's pretty frightening when you think about what we've found out there in Malibu. It's like spot on the money. But yeah, and not only are we tracked, and you can resolve to things like, and I watch 24, man, I know what's going on, but with cell phones, if you take off the telemetry of the plane, let's take that out of the mix. Let's take the black boxes out. Mm-hmm. Let's take the satellite connections for the engines and the engineers that are involved there. Okay, let's take that off of the tape. Let's take the Boeing information that they're constantly tracking every plane that they lease. Okay, let's take that out of the mix. But you know what? You still have 200 passengers on that plane that have iPhones. They have Life 360 downloaded onto their phone.
Well, that's a good point.
Yes. And then you've got
you have the cloud.
The cloud. Laptops. I'm sorry. You have the entire Wi-Fi system that is on that plane that is 24/7. You have all of the TVs that are in the back of every single seat and all of the net connections.
The theory they lost pressure, though, and everybody was asleep on the ship.
Well, okay, yeah, but that doesn't mean that the cell phones are all turned off.
Right.
Off, not down, but off, or iPads and laptops.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is probably 300 or 400 different satellite connections that were all live on that plane to the very bitter end, and that's it. And I just don't buy it. They say, at the intro of this show, the king of conspiracy, right? Okay. All right. Well, you know what? I'm throwing it out there right now. And I've said it so many.
I'm open to all the theories, looking at it from different angles, and lost my train of thought there.
I'm looking. Keith just texted me, and he said that coming up next on Behind the Paranormal, rock and roll musician David Young discusses channeling George Harrison. I think I'm going to hang on for that one, man. All right, we're done.
Oh,
hey, stay with us. I'm just going to roll credits, okay? Stay with us. I'll let you say goodnight to everybody, and I don't want to cut you off. Just stay with us. This is Fade to Black. Stay tuned. Coming up next, you just heard me, Behind the Paranormal, followed by After Dark with Brian Alvarez. Special thanks to Keith Rowland and Art Bell. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm and Mark D. Kovar. Announcers are Steve Harder and Mark D. Kovar. Music is by Doug Aldrich. Show intros performed by Spaceboy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, saying Happy, Merry 4th of July. Say Happy, Merry 4th of July, Adam.
Happy, Merry 4th of July, Adam.
Hey, thanks for coming on with us tonight. This is Fade to Black. Everybody have a great, safe weekend, and I'll see you next week. Good night, everybody. Good night, Adam.
Good night. Thanks.